Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call the regular village board meeting for April 6, 2026 to order. Clerk Benton, so fun to say that. Please call the roll.
Mayor Mullen,
Here?
Trustee Duffy.
Here.
Trustee Grau.
Here.
Trustee McGovern.
Present.
Trustee McQuillan.
Here.
Trustee Olson.
Here.
Trustee Sima.
Here.
Excellent, thank you. At this point, I would like to welcome Girl Scout Troop 56994 of Lyle Elementary School to the meeting. Before the board meeting tonight, I got to speak with them a little bit, answer some fun questions with them, and at this point, I'd like to ask you guys to come on up to the podium, and you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Well, for everyone else, please rise. Whenever you guys are ready. Excellent job, guys. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Oh. Now the question is, do I share? Does the board get to have a few? Thank you guys so much. Thank you, sweetie. I will apologize to everybody as I've had a cold for way too long, and I'm going to cough at you. I'm really sorry, and I've got cough drops in my mouth, so I'm sorry for that as well. Tonight, under appointments, proclamations, and presentations, we have a few proclamations to go over. The first will be a proclamation in recognition of the 35th annual DuPage River Sweep. I'd like to invite Amy Phillips from the Conservation Foundation up to the podium. I'll read the proclamation and then present it to Amy, and she can say a few words. Proclamation reads, whereas the County of DuPage, through the Stormwater Management Department and municipalities, townships, and park districts, recognize ongoing stream cleaning and restoration as essential for the preservation of waterways throughout DuPage County and Northeast Illinois. Whereas DuPage County River Sweep is a countywide stream cleanup and restoration event organized by the Conservation Foundation and held in cooperation with the American Rivers National River Cleanup. And whereas the purpose of the River Sweep is to encourage community and volunteer groups to help sweep our rivers clean by picking up debris in and along our waterways and by participating in stream restoration projects. And whereas stream cleaning efforts have been very successful with more than 16,000 volunteers removing over 300 tons of debris from DuPage County streams since 1991. And whereas the Village of Lyle congratulates the Conservation Foundation on 35 successful years for this event. Now therefore be it proclaimed, I, Mayor Mary Jo Mullen, on behalf of the Village of Lyle Board of Trustees, do hereby encourage all residents and other community members to make a difference in the quality of water within the community and are further urged to support and participate in River Sweep 2026 on April 18th, 2026. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys recognizing the River Sweep. As Mayor Mullen said, this is our 35th year doing this, so kind of got this going at this point. We've had unprecedented registration, so if anybody still wants to do it, I'm sure we'll find a spot for you, because the more people we get outside cleaning up our rivers and streams, the healthier our waters and the healthier our communities are going to be. So could not do this without the work that you guys do, and we're grateful for all of your partnership, so thank you so much.
Perfect. One, two, and three. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up is a proclamation in recognition of 2026 National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. All right, sorry. The proclamation reads, whereas DuPage Public Safety Communications, known as DUCOM, plays a vital role in the protection of human life and property in our community. And whereas DUCOM has been successfully serving the public safety communications needs of the Village of Lisle and surrounding communities since 1989, and whereas while enduring long shifts and handling frequent life and death emergencies, DUCOM telecommunicators set high standards in performing their duties in a dedicated, diligent, and compassionate manner. And whereas DUCOM telecommunicators provide a critical communications link between the residents and police, fire, and emergency medical service providers. And where these individuals efficiently coordinate emergency services to ensure the health and safety of our residents, visitors, and travelers in our cities, towns, villages, districts, and on our highways, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas DUCOM personnel serve the public daily in their countless ways without due recognition by the beneficiaries of their services. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed, I, Mayor Mary Jo Mullen, on behalf of the Lisle Village Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim the week of April 12th through 18th as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and publicly salute the services and public safety telecommunicators in our community and in communities across the nation. Chief Rodriguez, would you please accept this proclamation on behalf of the DUCOM staff?
Thank you, Mayor Mullen. Thank you, Board. We are honored to honor our true first responders, the dispatchers that we work with every day, every night. They are the calming voice on the phone, and it's great that we are recognizing them, so thank you.
1, 2, 3. Perfect.
And last but not least is a proclamation establishing the week of April 13th as Flood Awareness Week. This one is a little bit close to my heart as a former FEMA National Flood Insurance Program specialist. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be subtle and I can't with cough drops. The proclamation for this one reads, whereas flooding can happen anytime and is the most common and costly natural disaster throughout our country, and whereas the Village of Lisle experienced a record flood event in April of 2013, and whereas during this and other flooding events, Lisle experienced the social, economic, and environmental consequences of damage to property caused by flood disasters. And whereas the Village of Lisle joins in partnership with FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program and National Weather Service to highlight flood risks and provide important information about steps to protect life and property. And whereas the Village of Lisle continues to prepare for potential flood events through participation in the NFIP Community Rating System Program, flood mitigation efforts, enforcement of floodplain regulations, emergency preparedness exercises, public awareness, and education activities. And whereas residents are encouraged to observe Flood Awareness Week by preparing their homes and families for floods by reviewing flood safety guidance available on the FEMA and village websites. And whereas residents are encouraged to review their flood risk and purchase flood insurance, as damage from a flood is not normally covered under a standard homeowner's policy. And whereas by being informed and prepared, and by taking proper protective action, Lisle can reduce the potential for loss of life and damage to property when faced by the threat of flooding. Now therefore be it proclaimed, I, Mary Jo Mullen, on behalf of the Village of Lisle Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim this week of April 13th through 17th, 2026 as Flood Awareness Week. So thank you for that, guys. That brings us to the public hearing portion of the agenda. May I have a motion to open a public hearing for the village's proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 budget?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Will the village clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Duffy?
Aye.
Trustee Sima?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee McGovern?
Aye.
Trustee McQuillan?
Aye.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
Thank you very much. The public hearing notice was published in the Daily Herald on March 20th, 2026, and the proposed budget has been made available for public review online and at Village Hall. At this time, I'd like to ask Deputy Village Manager CFO Sarah Mitchell to introduce the proposed budget.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. The proposed budget was previously presented in detail at the March 16th Committee of the Whole meeting, and minor adjustments have since been incorporated. State statute requires that the budget be available for public inspection for at least 10 days prior to adoption, and that the village holds at least one public hearing. The village's fiscal year begins May 1st and concludes April 30th. The proposed budget includes total expenditures of $58,696,466 and projected revenues of $51,691,374, resulting in a planned use of reserves primarily to support one-time capital expenditures. The budget is balanced as the sum of revenues and fund balances are greater than expenditures. Overall fund balances continue to exceed the minimum reserve policies established by the village board. The final step in the budget process is to present the budget for final approval on April 20th. Mayor, that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the public on the proposed budget? Seeing none, any questions or comments from board members? Then may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
After motion and second, will village clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Duffy?
Aye.
Trustee Sima?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee McGovern?
Aye.
Trustee McQuillan?
Aye.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
And the public hearing has closed. That brings us to public comment. Just for everyone in the room, I know many people are here for the Bennett Academy discussion. As we enter public comment, you are free to do one of two things. Anybody wishing to give public comment can come on down to the podium right now and give up to 5 minutes of public comment. There will also be a time for public comment specific for the Bennett proposal. So if you're here to talk about Bennett, you can wait until we get to the agenda item and give comment then as well. One or the other, though. So with that, I will open up public comment.
Hi, I'm going to get in before the Bennett folks. My name is Lindsay Robertson. I'm here I live in Arbor Ridge neighborhood, and I'm here to remind the board that we are still awaiting ongoing regulations around the data center. So I'm pleased to hear that the proposal fell through. However, as you know, the site's still for sale, and there are other sites available in Lisle as well. And I would encourage the board to consider adopting new regulations for data centers to protect the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor Mullins and members of the board and the audience of the Village of Lisle. My name is Margaret De La Rosa, and I am your Illinois State Representative. So I just wanted to come here. I was at the library holding what we call Mondays with Margaret, where we listen to constituents, and I just want to invite all of you at some point to come and join us with any issues you have. I certainly would love to talk about data centers. But I just wanted to just take a few minutes to introduce myself. I've been in this job 176 days, and I followed the notable Tara Costa Howard. I was appointed back on October 12th, quickly joined veto session on October 14th, and now I'm in the middle of the session going back to Springfield tomorrow. So just wanted to introduce myself. I will leave 2 cards with the clerk, so if anyone would like to get a hold of me, feel free. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Representative. Anyone else for general public comment?
Hello, Susan Sorrell. I wanted to update the board on a few things. First of all, you all know that I filed a large complaint with the ICC. I also emailed the judge that was overseeing the ICC complaint. I had called and spoke to Matt about some things. And I have received a phone call from Illinois American Water. I want to make that very clear to everybody. I have not called them back yet. I do not know what they want from me. Over 23 years of doing this, they've never tried to contact me. So since I filed those complaints, it's kind of interesting. They want to talk to me about that. Also, I think you should be aware that on the 3rd of April, the judge that's overseeing this also approved a protection order for Illinois American. What that means is they do not have to disclose everything that's being discussed, so they don't have to tell us what they own. That does not, that's not going to be public. So, I don't know why they're doing that. Haven't seen that before. Find that very interesting, so I hope you all do too. The reason I'm here tonight is I have made several FOIAs. I have 35,000 emails that I'm going through. And I found this very interesting. That was in some of my FOIAs. It's about code and enforcement and ordinances here in the village, and here's what it says. It says, all developments within the corporate limits of any development under village jurisdiction shall include provisions for a complete public water supply system and the construction of water distribution facilities complete with valves and fire hydrants. In accordance with this section and with the applicable standards, specifications for water and sewer, main construction in Illinois, unless noted otherwise in the following sections. As a minimum, the distribution system shall include a system of public water, mains and service lines between a connection or connections to the existing public distribution system at approved locations. Private wells will not be allowed within the corporate limits of the village board unless approved by the village board. The design of all public water distribution system facilities proposed for construction as independent projects under the village jurisdiction shall also meet the technical requirements of this section. The requirements of the section 1 and 2 are also applicable to the public water distribution system, which brings me to my next little thing, which we've discussed before, about the water mains that were installed by the village, by Illinois American within the Village of Lisle limits. Village code requires a complete public water system built to Illinois standards within proper design, inspection, and approval. The village included Oakview in its consultation review of Illinois American's water rate, well, not Illinois, the village's water rate increase. So when it comes to cost, are we really part of the system? You include us when you want to increase your rates by 9%. But then you don't include us when it comes to building water mains in our area within the village. So, but when it comes to protection, enforcement, and infrastructure, we're not part of your system. So, did the village approve and inspect these mains? Where were the test results? And who ensured compliance with our own code? Again, we all know the answer to that, and it's no. You did none of those. And there was also, years ago, not this board, but $7.1 million taken out of the water fund, which was paid back with some interest. So while millions were moved out of that fund, which our money goes into, Oakview was told there was no money. to help us. So you can't charge us like we're included, ignore us when it doesn't matter to you, and then move millions like no one's watching. Either the code applies to everyone, or the code does not exist. So you need to figure that out. You either need to include us all the time, or don't include us at all. But that is a decision you have to make. I will keep you up to date when I talk to Illinois American Water and let you all know what they have to say. I want you all to know I will not. The lady that called me is what I would call a fixer. She likes to offer water. She has offered 70% off of other people's bills for a period of time, up to 5-10 years. I will not accept anything from Illinois American. They cannot buy me out. I will not be bought. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for general public comment? Okay, seeing none. Oh, sorry. I will move on to the consent agenda. Items listed as part of the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and will be voted on together as a group unless a member of the village board requests to be considered separately. Tonight's consent agenda includes the March 16th regular village board and committee of the whole minutes and the April 6th invoice list. Does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to go ahead and ask Village Manager Cook to provide an overview of each item on the consent agenda.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and members of the Village Board. Tonight's consent agenda includes a number of items, starting with item A, which approves the regular Village Board meeting minutes for March 16th, 2026. Item B approves the regular Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for March 16th, 2026. Item C approves the invoice list for April 6th, 2026 in the amount of $1,001,981.66. Item D approves an ordinance calling for a public hearing and joint review board meeting to consider approval of the proposed Lincoln Avenue, Route 53 redevelopment project area 2 tax increment financing district. This ordinance is part of the process required to reestablish the Route 53 TIF district, and published with this agenda item is the eligibility report and proposed TIF redevelopment plan and project, which have also been made available for public inspection since March 25th. The ordinance sets the JRB meeting for April 28th at 1 p.m. right here in the Village Boardroom, and a public hearing on June 1st, also here in the boardroom. Item E approves a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with Mad Bomber Fireworks Productions for the Independence Day fireworks display for an amount not to exceed $50,000. This year's display is proposed to include additional red, white, and blue accents to the show's opening and finale in recognition of the country's 250th anniversary, as well as the Village of Lisle's 70th anniversary. Item F approves a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a license agreement with the Lisle Park District for the use of Community Park for the Independence Day fireworks display. Item G approves a resolution authorizing the update of the purchasing manual for the village. The manual was last updated in 2019, and this update is drafted to align with current best practices. Item H approves a resolution authorizing the update of the travel reimbursement policy for the village. This policy was last updated in 2016, and this update too is drafted to align with current best practices. Lastly, item I approves a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute an agreement with BLA Incorporated for Phase 2 engineering services for the Main Street resurfacing project in an amount not to exceed $97,970. This project relates to a segment of Main Street between Burlington Avenue on the north and Route 53 on the south. Phase 1 design was started in November of last year, with Phase 2 planned this year and construction in 2027. I do want to thank our public works staff for their efforts to seek out grant funds for projects like these. It's a long process. In this particular case, it began with an application in 2023, but 3 years later, the village has been recommended to receive nearly $600,000 for this particular project and an additional almost $600,000 for the section of Main Street between Warrenville and Ogden Avenue. So again, thanks for the effort there. It's a good way to leverage our public dollars by getting these additional grant funds. And with that, staff recommends Village Board approval of items A through I as presented.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to approve items A through I in the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Any board discussion? Seeing none, Village Clerk Benton, please call roll.
Trustee Duffy?
Aye.
Trustee Sima?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee McGovern? Aye. Trustee McQuillan?
Aye.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
And consent agenda is approved. That brings us to our regular agenda. An ordinance, first up, an ordinance approving a major change to the Bennett Academy Planned Unit Development special use permit for the Bennett Academy Planned Unit Development with departures and a special use permit for sports and recreational lighting for Bennett Academy located at 2200 Maple Avenue. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second. With Development Services Director Smetana, please provide an overview of this item.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Approval of this ordinance will authorize Bennett Academy to redevelop athletic facilities. The redevelopment is scheduled in 2 phases. The first phase will consist of a synthetic turf football field, track, stadium lighting, press box, bleachers, long jump, and pole vault, pits, scoreboard, time clock, 2 storage buildings, and parking lot modifications. The second phase of the project will consist of a multi-function building, pavilion, and synthetic turf field expected to be utilized for soccer and lacrosse. The Planning and Zoning Commission conducted public hearings on July 16th, August 20th, September 17th, October 1st, October 15th, and November 19th of 2025. Opposition to the applicant's proposed redevelopment plans were expressed throughout that public hearing process by residents of the Oak Hill South subdivision. The public hearing included cross-examination of the applicant and the applicant's consultants. Concerns expressed by Oak Hill South residents include but are not limited to noise and light trespass. The Planning and Zoning Commission, upon closing the public hearing, voted 6-1 to recommend approval of the zoning requests. Throughout the public hearing process and following closure of the public hearing, staff worked with the petitioner to further strengthen proposed conditions of approval. The final proposed conditions of approval appended to this proposed ordinance include the following: establishment of a peak maximum sound level of 83 decibels, establishment of a 1-hour average sound level of 75 decibels, installation and maintenance of a sound monitoring system for a minimum period of 3 years, and submission of data generated by that sound monitoring system to the village to be reviewed for compliance with the conditioned sound levels. Submission of an outdoor lighting audit to confirm compliance with the approved photometric plans, increased clarity of penalties for non-compliance with conditions of approval, and in general, a reduction of the ambiguity of the conditions. For Village Board consideration, staff has prepared an ordinance in the affirmative with the aforementioned conditions of approval.
Thank you very much. Let's start off with public comment on this item specifically. So each person can have up to 5 minutes. You can come on down, introduce yourself, please, for the record. And I don't know, 1, 2, 3, go, but but please come on up for anyone who wishes to provide comment. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, and staff. My name is Lorraine Chaboche, and I live in Oak Hill South. I've been engaged on this project for over a year. I want to begin by acknowledging that Bennett has made some real progress on a few changes. The size of the stadium has been reduced, shifted 14 feet away, and the scoreboard scaled back. These are steps in the right direction, and we certainly appreciate this progress. However, the biggest issues for residents remain lights and noise. Lights and noise will affect our daily lives, our homes and our families, and the current conditions simply do not do enough to protect us. We just received the packet with the conditions and the ordinance last Thursday afternoon. We were expected to review and understand the impacts during the holiday weekend. This timeline was unnecessarily rushed. I'm not sure why. Residents had questions and reached out to you trustees. A few trustees got back to us, others did not. We get that. It was a very busy week for all of us with spring break and the holiday weekend. It's like getting your final exam essay question for a class the week before it's due. You have questions, but all your professors are out of office and the library is closed. But here is the difference. A bad grade can be fixed. A permanent stadium cannot. Once built, these impacts last forever. Did that work? That's why these conditions matter, and they must be right. We were working in good faith with the village staff, but that work is not finished. Let's strengthen these conditions so they truly address the real concerns, especially lights and noise. As a matter of fact, we just submitted suggestions for the revisions to these conditions yesterday, so I'm not sure how many of you were able to look at those and digest them. Therefore, I'm asking that we have a month to review these conditions since this project is resting on them. Can each of you honestly say, without hesitation, that the conditions are a fair compromise? If you haven't had the time to understand the 8-page list of conditions, 3-page ordinance, and the revisions just submitted yesterday, I ask you to delay the vote. If you have questions that have not been answered, I ask you to delay the vote. If more clarifications are needed, delay the vote. If you had time to read and understand the conditions and the letters from the residents, you would realize that the conditions do not adequately protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Let me be clear. I am not saying don't build the stadium, but what I am asking for you to do is to understand the impacts. Just think about it. Would any of you be willing to swap houses with one behind the stadium and live with these conditions right now? The easiest thing to do tonight is to vote yes, rubber stamp it, and move on. But the right thing to do is to trust your gut, pause, and acknowledge that these conditions are not ready. I want to repeat that. The easiest thing to do tonight is just to vote yes, rubber stamp it, and move on. But the right thing to do is to trust your gut, pause, and acknowledge these conditions are not ready. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and trustees. Good evening. I want to put the struggle between Bennett, the residents, and the village into some perspective, please. It's been a long process to balance fairness with Bennett's right to build a stadium. As we all know, the PZC approved this back in November. But in December, when it came before you, you were all prepared to vote no because there was no compromise. Bennett withdrew that petition in December, as we all know. The same thing happened here in January. You held firm and you said again, there has to be real compromise. Your willingness to say no twice is exactly what finally brought them to where we are now at the table. We sincerely thank each and every one of you for holding that line. You showed real leadership and you got us the concessions we have today, but there is more work needed. They've made 3 small physical changes, as already mentioned, and agreed to this master set of operational conditions as a justification for the whole build. What is Bennett getting? They don't have to play night football across the street. They don't need to build it 400 feet east. These are all the things that were on the table. They don't have to flip the bleachers to the east side. They don't have to play daytime football on Saturday. All that's gone, right? What does the community get? An 8-page exhibit of operational conditions and a 3-page ordinance. And these documents just appeared Thursday in the agenda packet. These operational conditions are the key to the whole project, and it's a lot to digest. These conditions and ordinance, so they appeared 4 days ago during spring break, Holy Week, and the Easter weekend. I know I, as well as many residents, have tried to keep attention on family togetherness versus this divisiveness during the weekend. This has not been fair to everyone involved. I've also personally questioned, I sent an email to Director Smetana Monday, followed up, for the missing noise data, study data, regarding the marching band. If you recall, on January 12th, Trustee Duffy said, "Show us the marching band data. Where is it?" Never appeared. This info is critical and may affect these noise conditions that the village drafted up. My email was placed in the packet on Thursday, and Bennett owes a response, and we have yet to review that. I think all of you will agree it's required. Also, just as a sidebar here, we FOIA'd village correspondence over a week ago with Bennett, and just today, we are still receiving our FOIA information from the village. In closing, my wife already asked for a delay on behalf of the neighbors. I'm here to echo that request. Please delay the vote. Let's get it right. Give the community, the village, and Bennett the time to do this right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, please come on down.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. We are often told that compromise is the first way forward to resolve dispute between parties, and in many situations that is true. But when it comes to upholding village codes and standards, compromise becomes a failure rather than fairness. Village codes exist for a reason. They are designed to protect our safety, preserve our property values, and ensure a basic quality of life for everyone in the community. These standards create a shared understanding of what is acceptable and what is not. If we allow compromise in these situations, we begin to erode the very foundation of those protections. If we allow Bennett to infringe on neighbors and inflict injury upon us, and the resolution is to meet halfway, what does that mean? Safety is not something that can be divided for a compromise. Either injury will be happening to neighbors or not. Either a property value will diminish or not. Compromise in these cases does not create fairness, rather it creates risk and damage. Moreover, allowing compromise in code enforcement can lead to inconsistency and resentment. One neighbor may be held strictly to the values, while a powerful one like Bennett is allowed exceptions. This undermines trust not only between neighbors, but also in the system meant to protect us. True fairness in this context does not come from negotiation. It comes from consistency. It comes from applying the same standards equally to everyone without exception. Compromise should not override established rules that are designed to protect us all. In matters of village codes and standards, the right solution is not a middle ground. It is the right ground. I hope you will uphold the village rules entrusted to you and make the right decision that will have a profound and lasting impact on our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a reminder, please state your name.
Hi, my name's Matthew Morin. The minor changes, when combined with the strict conditions, do not adequately address critical code requirements meant to protect residents. In short, Bennett has not met their burden under the standards and review criteria. I'll highlight 3 areas. 1, there must not be significant, permanent, or adverse impact to home values. Bennett asserts that slower home appreciation resulting from the stadium does not substantially diminish and impair property values. However, our analysis in the public record demonstrate that Bennett's own housing analysis shows that the introduction of a stadium slowed appreciation by 2.4% compared to the rest of the city of Bentonville. Additionally, in Arbor Trails, homes closer to the Benedictine University football stadium, homes closer to the stadium appreciated by more than 30% less than those further away, and they have a small forest separating the stadium from the residential homes, not just a chain link fence. Over a 10-year period, 2.4 slower percent appreciation translates to $175,000 per home, amounting to $15 million in lost property value across the neighborhood's 86 homes. Is anyone willing to give up $175,000 on your home to choose that for all of your neighbors and friends as well? 2, the public benefits are greater than or at least equal to the benefits of the applicant. Bennett is an asset to the community, however, that does not relieve them of the requirement for the stadium project to create greater value to the village than benefits to Bennett. When Bennett's board approved the project, they defined the value to Bennett as greater than the cost of the project. That means the value this project brings to Lisle must be greater than the project costs, likely tens of millions of dollars, on top of the $15 million in loss to homes. Bennett has not put in for any new benefits into the public record. Why? Because there is no new benefit to the village. 3, there must be no adverse effects to our health and welfare and injury to the enjoyment of our property. Bennett has the right to develop its property, but they do not have the right to cause harm to the surrounding community. While the proposed stadium aims to resolve scheduling conflicts at BU, it raises concerns for Lisle neighborhoods, which could face simultaneous events occurring in stadiums just across the street from each other. This would lead to Oak Hill South and nearby areas engulfed in excessive lights, noise, and traffic. Lisle residents would experience disturbances from 2 stadiums, and as things stand, the noise standards only require reasonable efforts to meet the limits, and lighting doesn't have a glare standard. In other words, there are no enforceable standards for noise or lighting to protect the community over time. Without clear, established requirements, the village lacks the authority to effectively manage these issues. Additionally, the stadium will negatively affect the enjoyment of our property. We know this as we already experience noise and glare from Benedictine Stadium that adversely impacts how we enjoy our property. The facts and issues in this proposal remain unchanged since the rejection of Lisle's High School's proposed lights and upgrades to Wild Field. In that case, the vast majority of students and their family live in Lisle. With Bennett, that is only true for 10% of the students and their families. This project hurts Lisle. The precedent set by that decision, the standards and review criteria, and the lack of due process, specifically the absence of opportunities for residents to cross-examine new design updates, continue to be significant concerns. Furthermore, the missing technical information, which has been requested at both the Planning and Zoning Committee and by this board, has yet to be provided. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the board to reject this application in its entirety or deny the lights until Bennett can demonstrate the compliance with the noise and standard before extending it late into the night. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come on up.
Good evening, and thank you for the time and effort each of you take to serve our community. My name is Maria Anderson, and my husband and 2 children have been proud residents of Lisle for 15 years. I'm here this evening to encourage you to please vote in favor of allowing Bennett Academy to move forward with its plans to renovate its existing stadium and track and field facilities. Our family lived in Lisle long before our children became students at Bennett, and will continue to live here after our youngest graduates in a couple of years. Because of that, I am speaking tonight not just as a Bennett parent, but as a resident who cares about the long-term vitality and reputation of our village. One reason I support this proposal is that it represents a significant private investment in Lisle that does not require taxpayer funding. Opportunities to improve our community without asking the village for financial support are not something we should take lightly. I also want to acknowledge that Bennett Academy has spent considerable time working through the proper process with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Through these hearings, the school has patiently worked to address concerns raised by nearby residents. I understand that living near a facility like this brings understandable concerns about traffic, lighting, and activity. I appreciate that those neighbors have taken the time to participate in the process, and it's encouraging that Bennett Academy has worked through the planning and zoning hearings to address many of those concerns. That process and the Commission's vote to move the proposal forward reflects the good faith effort by all in taking those concerns seriously and finding reasonable solutions. When institutions like Bennett invest in their campus, they are also investing in the future and reputation of Lisle. Communities grow stronger when organizations choose to invest in the places they call home. For those reasons, I respectfully urge you to support the continued growth and positive image of our village by voting in favor of allowing Bennett Academy to move forward with its renovation. Thank you for your time and again for your service to our community.
Thank you very much. Next up, please.
Good evening. My name is Becky Vacco Judas. I live on Cascade Drive in Oak Hill South. As a neighbor on the property line and a parent of 4 children ranging in age from 14 to 8, I support the stadium proposal. I would not support this project if I believed it would negatively impact my family or my neighborhood. I truly believe the opposite. This proposal, this plan, transforms an outdated, underutilized space into something thoughtful, attractive, and beneficial, both for students and nearby residents. I also want to share that many of us in Oak Hill South are genuinely excited about this and are in support of these plans. While some voices have been louder and more visible, they do not reflect the full range of perspectives in our neighborhood. And finally, I would like to thank you, the board, for the time, care, and collaboration you've shown throughout this process. Please know there are many neighbors like me who support this project, see it as a positive investment in our community, and appreciate the many compromises that Bennett has made with our block and neighborhood in mind. I respectfully ask for your approval of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please.
Is there a PowerPoint?
Good evening. My name is Danielle Apello, and I am an interested party. Many residents will have their daily lives shaped by the decisions made here today. I thank you for taking to heart the goal of creating tight conditions for this development. Because this situation is unprecedented, we are asking the village to create a very thorough set of conditions that sets a new bar for stadiums within neighborhoods. This case is unique because nowhere else in the entire state of Illinois can you find 2 stadiums across the street from each other. Nowhere. Additionally, the closeness of the homestands to residential properties is at the far end of the spectrum. It's that close. And that's a choice Bennett made. There are other options available, but that's where we are. So these conditions have a very heavy lift. They need to be more robust than Loyola Academy. Loyola is a standalone stadium with significant buffer from the residents. We are asking for these conditions to be appropriate for this extraordinary ask. So I wanted to walk you through some of the goals we have with proposed changes to the conditions. 1, to provide a clear, measurable requirement for all of the sound and lights. To provide transparency in government reporting on the data that's provided, and to ensure comprehensive enforcement for the village. So first, these are just red lines. I think you've already had them in your email. But the entire west property line should have a landscape buffer. Those who live north of the construction zone matter. They need protection, visual protection and sound protection. Planning and zoning asked for a fence on the property line too to protect against headlights. That needs to be included. There are also 2 other items from planning and zoning that were agreed to but overlooked in these conditions. First, the sound system should be programmed to event size. It also needs to be turned down for smaller events. Just because they can be loud doesn't mean they should. The second is that the sound system should only be used for a limited number of events. Currently, the conditions allow for the sound system to be used every day of the year. In planning and zoning, the petitioner presented this chart stating that not all events would have sound on them. That needs to get included back in here to limit the number of days sounds can be used. This is their own exhibit. Next, we need to tighten the noise requirements by removing loopholes of the language. Remove Bennett's flexibility to claim that complying with sound conditions isn't reasonable. After all, if the crowd cheers too loudly, they can easily claim that's out of their control. It's unreasonable to control that. So please remove that language. Also, the background noise of cars, cicadas, neighborhood activities forms the baseline of sound in the neighborhood. Noise levels from the stadium added with the baseline noise should never be at levels that harm our safety. So they can't claim, for example, the cicadas were so loud. It's not our fault that the noises are too loud. We need to take out all these loophole words. We need to add a glare spec to limit intrusion on the neighbors. We're going to talk more about that later, but we need a spec in the conditions so that everyone at this table, when we're gone in the future, there's something to look back to and rely on when it comes to the lighting. Another thing that's really critical is we definitely need to make sure there's transparency in reporting. So all data needs to be reported to you guys and then posted publicly. And then any conditions that are violated need to have an explanation. So if it's a material violation or more of a minor violation, some sort of rationale as to how that's been applied and why needs to be given publicly so people understand what's going on. I think that's just common sense. If we can't agree to this, I don't know what we're doing. And then the last one is comprehensive enforcement. So really making sure we change from a school year-based counting system to a 365-day rolling evaluation period. This would eliminate the loophole, which excludes summer events. Currently, summer events are not included in this. So this situation, it's really more about making sure these conditions are enforced. But it's also not good enough to simply say, we have the best conditions in Illinois, we have the best conditions locally. The conditions must meet the unique and excessive nature of this project and protect residents. So right now you have a rare opportunity to set a new standard for how communities like ours protect residents, and I thank you for your consideration in doing so.
Thank you very much. Next up, please.
Trying to figure out how to work this. Oh, here we go. Okay, my name is Jim Mokarski, and I'm also an interested party. I'm going to talk a little bit about glare. When we think about stadium lighting, there are 3 things that matter. There's uplight, which is what is sent towards the sky to track a football. There's illumination, which is pointed to the ground to light the field, and then there's glare. That's what we see, and more importantly, what we actually feel. Illumination is the primary goal of the stadium lighting. It has to brightly and uniformly illuminate the playing field and not the neighbors. This is measured in foot candles. The conditions currently limit this to less than 0.1 foot candles at the property line. It works because they optimize to control illumination and focus it on the field. But the byproduct of illumination is glare, and the conditions put forward in the draft ordinance place no limit on glare. But Bennett has promised no glare, but they won't quantify it. Here's the two exhibits that explicitly make that testimony. But this performance is next to impossible from real-world viewing angles on the ground. And here's why. Musco has to make design decisions that prioritize brighter illumination over glare control. But like I said, brighter illumination means more glare. This is exactly why they told you that North Central College wasn't a good comparison. NCAA lighting requirements are brighter, and therefore the glare is more. To make matters worse, LED technologies are intense point sources, and the stadium lights have a color temperature that's particularly annoying. So even if just a little bit of light is not shielded, the sheer intensity of these LEDs cause really, really high glare. And that's why as your gaze moves up towards the LEDs, it gets worse. We don't live our lives looking around at the ground. We look up and around at the world. But that's why there's an international glare rating standard. It's a human perception scale, just like decibels, but it's based on the contrast between source intensity and the background. It's comfortable up to about 20, a rating of 20, and then it gets distracting as you get higher across 30. Eventually it becomes disturbing, and then even unbearable as you get to a glare rating of 60 more. You can try this for yourself next time the Benedictine University lights are on. Just look at the bottom and let your eyes go to the top. But Bennett said, we can expect what they have at New Trier. It's the same technology and the same high school brightness. They also provided specific examples of what not to expect. And here's two exhibits from our FOIA request of Bennett's emails to the village showing bad glare at Mundelein and Prairie Ridge high schools. So what we decided to do is we made 3 separate trips out to New Trier to see what was really happening and what it looked like from real viewing angles and not from above the baffles. This first one's a shot that's a good comparison to the Musco exhibits. I think you have to agree that it looks a lot more like the 70s and 80s technology than it does to today's that they're promising. Here's another group of shots that compare their marketing photo image from New Trier, taken from a very high angle with the bad glare examples they provided. And here I think it's really obvious that New Trier performance is not acceptable by Bennett's own standards. You know, no glare isn't a reasonable expectation, but limiting glare rating to a non-distracting levels at a moderate lookup angle is reasonable. And if combined with the noise condition changes we were proposing, it might just allow Bennett to credibly claim that they meet the standards and review criteria, prohibiting injury to the enjoyment of our property. But I understand this is short notice, so if you're not comfortable with setting a specific glare limit now, a placeholder for a mutually agreed limit would be appropriate. As my wife said to me this morning, our neighborhood used to be desirable because of its proximity to Bennett. After adding the stadium, it won't be. We're asking you not to gamble with our rights, hoping that somehow Bennett Stadium will be the first to ever meet the expectations they set for this board and this community. The prudent compromise is to put a requirement, or at a minimum a placeholder for glare, in the conditions now, but delay the approval of the lights until after Bennett proves that they have been met substantially at some other stadium. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I don't know what happened. Okay.
All right, hello, my name is Catherine Morin, and I am a 7-year resident of Oak Hill South. If the village decides to set a new precedent and cut a deal to approve this development despite the clear non-compliance with the standards and review criteria, we urge you, at a minimum, to vote no to the special use permit for recreational lighting. A non-lighted stadium, subject to the modified conditions that we have proposed, gives Bennett the opportunity to prove that they can meet the sound limits before extending them late into the evening. This also gives residents comfort that the village can enforce the conditions. The lights can be revisited and added later once the technology has improved to actually deliver what Bennett has promised. You can separate the vote. Let me repeat that. You can separate the vote. Because this petition includes 2 different land use decisions that require independent evaluation. First, the PUD amendment addresses site design, layout, and the mix of uses, matters of physical and functional planning. Conversely, the special use governs operational intensity and the unique impacts of neighboring areas. Each decision regulates distinct aspects and, as anticipated by the code, should be considered by its own merits. Separating the vote is not only a compromise, which this board has asked for, but also a principled approach that allows Bennett to meet the vast majority of its needs, including track, band, lacrosse, gym class, soccer, JV football, and even varsity football if scheduled appropriately, while ensuring that late-night usage does not compromise community standards. The remaining uses for this stadium represent a small fraction of Bennett's overall needs and can be accommodated at BU for lighted events. Bennett's needs cannot override the village's responsibility to protect residents' quality of life and uphold established standards. The process of getting developments approved must be consistent first and foremost in that the village's standards and review criteria for approval must be upheld. Consistency means applying the same standards to each project. The village needs integrity around what we are basing decisions on, or what do we have. A second lighted stadium surrounding our neighborhood is not the time to gamble that these proposed stadium lights will be the first installation to deliver what they've promised. Voting no to the special use for recreational lights is the only way to protect residents, and it is within your power to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Donahue, and as you all know, I live along the fence line directly behind the existing Bennett bleachers, one of several homes directly impacted by the project. As you may recall, every single one of you, with the exception of Trustee McGovern, has stood in my house and has seen what I currently see. I've emailed pictures to you of the glare I'm currently experiencing from BU, so I'm hopeful that you appreciate my perspective on this matter. Imagine this doubling with a second stadium happening 100 feet from my windows. I would first like to thank all of you for your dedication and devotion to attempting to resolve the many issues that confront us as a result of this project. There has been no question that you've done your collective best to come to resolutions that everybody can live with. What really saddens me, though, is that we, the neighbors, those most directly impacted by your decision, never really had a seat at the table so that we could have been actively participating in the numerous discussions that will clearly and negatively impact us for decades to come. Had we done that, I think you would have found us to be kind, generous, thoughtful, and open-minded. Some of these neighbors are very, very smart and know a lot about what will confront us in the future should this project go forward in its entirety. We are the tax-paying members of this community, not Bennett. We, the residents, are the ones who voted you into office, not Bennett. We are the ones who have entrusted you, the board, with the enormous task of protecting us, your residents. In looking online this morning at your individual speeches from your swearing-in ceremony from May 4, 2025, the common theme was that you must move fast. I appreciate the many challenges facing this board and agree that the clock is ticking on lots of important matters affecting our village. Believe me, nobody wants this over with more than I do. But as the saying goes, haste makes waste. Please don't rush to push this project through. It is way too important. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please.
My name is Alan Asper. I live in Oak Hill South for the last 25 years and raised a family there. I'm not here to discuss foot candles and accommodations for types of use. My neighbors have discussed those quite convincingly. My opposition is less formal and broader and briefer. You know, we all know how life is just a little bit worse in the last few years. You know, things at Walgreens are locked up. Portillo's isn't as good. We all know that. And this proposal is just another one of those examples of how little things are making quality of life worse. This change to the stadium won't improve a single test score. It won't improve the critical thinking skills of any Bennett student. And after all, isn't that the reason we want to send our kids to one of the best high schools in the state? So the next time that any of you are inconvenienced by having to get out your phone to look at a QR code for a menu at a restaurant, I want you to think about, did you embrace that trend or did you reject it? So, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Brian Carr, and I have been a resident of Lisle since 2003. Thank you all for the time and care and thought that you have all poured into this process. It is clear that you have worked hard to balance the needs of the community. I'm here tonight to express my support for Bennett Academy's stadium modernization project. Supporting strong educational institutions helps keep our Lisle community healthy and vibrant, and it attracts new residents and continued investment in our village. I respectfully ask that you support the approving of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please.
My name is Gene Heitkamp, and I'm a longtime Lisle resident living near the school. I'm also a committed Bennett teacher and coach. I think this project would be good for both Bennett and Lisle, and I know Bennett will be a good neighbor. I ask for your support, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next up.
Hi, Dan Greco, Honorable Mayor, trustees. Nice to see you again this evening. Talking about a hot topic issue here. I know there's a lot of people that are both in favor or against the project, and I'm here to say, ultimately, I'm in support of the project, but again, if we can make sure that we've got the necessary guardrails on it to protect, obviously, the residents that are right next door to this. In some discussion, there's by the way, my background is also civil engineer, and I design lighting as well. Not for this project in particular, but I'm lending my 2 cents. We've seen some exhibits, a lot of people pointing out what's known as glare. What you're seeing is when you can actually see the bulb, that's cut-off optics not working the way that it should be. It should be 0 at the property line. That's a code enforcement issue. So if you see that kind of light glaring out on the street from a restaurant, like they have a light to try to attract your attention, that's illegal. That's not per the village ordinance, the county ordinance, or the state ordinance. Excuse me. So I think in a lot of these instances too, you're seeing glare being mentioned, and there might be some conditions of humidity or rain as well. That might be some examples that were given where you could see that. I mean, when the tollway comes out to your property, that has to be a clear day. It can't have any type of weather effect that might be amplifying the effect. So if you're measuring glare, all things considered, if there's no cutoff optics, if there's bad weather, those type of examples should not be used. And I saw a lot of, I praise the examples that are given, that the effort was made to try to make a distinguishing feature between uplighting and glare and illumination. But the fact is 0.1 foot candles at the property line, that is the max. So if you're going to install something, that's the standard it has to be measured to. And after everything's installed, there should be kind of a relief map made showing, like a contour map, showing the intensity as you go around the property to prove that once it's installed that it's in fact 0. I think a lot of people are using the Benedictine facility, and I don't believe that it was cutoff optics were implemented correctly. And I think it's a bad comparison. But a fair comparison, because we want to make sure that if they do build at this location, that they are building it correctly. So I'm of the opinion that if they build it, then they should be careful that they implement it correctly. Something I want to mention to the board, there's probably just a few things that I did when I was serving, and with the help of the other board members, we were able to pass. We're talking about the temperature and the intensity of the light. And again, I don't know if this is part of the PUD where there might be an exception or not, but we talked about keeping the temperature of the light at reasonable levels. I'm an astronomy fan. I don't like to see the night sky disappear. Obviously, if you've got parking lots and you've got stadium lighting and you've got car dealerships in your community and the street lighting in general, if that lighting is above 4,000 K, you're doing a detriment to animals and critters or the circadian cycles, and you're also kind of disturbing the neighbors that might be there too. So a consideration, I don't know what the whatever guidelines they're using for the collegiate level or high school level are going to be, but I don't know if you have to make an exception to the ordinance in the approval of the POD with the existing record that we have on file right now. So I wanted to point that out as well too. Lifelong resident, I remember when we looked at putting a stadium at Wildey Field, it failed. We had just 2 residents that were primarily against it. Here we've got a lot of people that are impacted by it, are showing up saying, giving their concerns. Please listen to their concerns, but be reasonable in the approach and in the design that is being forwarded. Again, Bennett existed before the Village of Lisle did. And I think that it's been a long time since they've upgraded their facilities, and I feel lighting, everybody that plays football on Friday night, it's going to be part of what they're doing. So, again, I would be very much in favor of a very classy, best in the state high school, Bennett Academy, moving forward with a class type of field that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please.
My name is Matthew Oblak. I'm a resident of Oak Hill South since 1979. I've basically been in Lisle my entire life. I was born here. And forgive me, I'm kind of running low on sleep. I'm taking care of my mother, who needs elderly care, and I'm also taking care of my sister, who broke her foot. So I'm running her kids around everywhere in their events, and so my thoughts may be jumbled around. So forgive me if they are. Let me get to it real quick. Okay, so some of the people who've said they've been a resident of Lisle, and I just asked a few of them up here who said they support the project. They don't live in Oak Hill South. They don't live that close to it, and they probably haven't lived here as long as a lot of us have in this neighborhood. And it's not just Oak Hill South. It also includes Oak Hill. Somebody mentioned at the very beginning of this that Oak Hill South is the only one who is in opposition to this. It's not just Oak Hill South. There is Oak Hill. Bennett has a history of trying to push projects through, and most of the time they get what they want. They're a bit of a bully. You guys don't have experience with this. And those who haven't lived here as long and think that this is a great idea have no idea what they're in for in terms of how this is going to go down the road. They like to, propose an inch. They proposed it for original football games, and then they tried to take a mile by further proposing a month later, or however long that was later, all the events that they wanted to include. They wanted to include all the sports and whatever extracurricular activities. So it became much bigger. And the problem is, it's not that the Bennett doesn't have a stadium. I miss the sound of Bennett football games during the weekends, and they were great, but it was during the day. And the biggest problem Bennett has is they're proposing night games, and that includes the variables of light, noise, extended games going along. Bennett's first football game of last season, or all the football games, ran an hour long. And in my house, I live about 2,000 feet away. I actively try to ignore the noise, but if I don't, I can hear every play. I can hear every reaction to big plays. I can hear the music very vividly in the house with windows closed. Stupid phone. What else? I'm not sure what the sea of red is here, but I haven't seen any of you, maybe one of you or two of you, in the neighborhood or the area. So I'm not sure what the support is here, or why they feel, but never mind, I'm not going to go there. Let's see. said that. Already said that. Okay. Oh, and then the other thing I wanted to mention, which the gentleman just before me mentioned, is Lyle High School proposed a stadium, and that got rejected easily. How is this one being considered so much, where it's pretty much the same situation? I don't understand it. And the thought of having two big stadiums across the street from one another, also kind of mind-boggling. But I understand Bennett should have some sort of field and track. And by the way, that track was brand new when I first went to school at Bennett. And I don't know why it's supposedly so bad now. I think it's just a want, it's not a need. And that's basically it. I think this is a bad idea, and with all the new things that were introduced this week, I think you guys should postpone the vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marjanka Marks, and I have been a Lisle resident since 2011. I do not live in Oak Hill or Oak Hill South. I live off Burlington and Lisle, and I love the area. I have a sophomore at Bennett, and he runs cross country and track, and he lives and breathes running. And just to the point that was just made, the track is terrible. Bennett cannot host a track meet, so we have no home track meet. So just to clarify, the track is not in great condition. So even when they're training out there for track and cross country, it is not ideal. But I just wanted to speak to a few points that I heard. I was not intending to speak, but I was moved after I heard some of all of the comments. And so I completely understand the neighbors are saying that they're the most impacted by this, but honestly, the kids are. Like, it's these kids that need this, new stadium, new track, new facilities. So I fully understand the neighbors are impacted, but we have to think about the kids here too, who chose to go to the school. My son was debating between St. Francis, Lisle, and Bennett, and we were then between, Lisle and Bennett because it's so close. We ended up choosing Bennett, and we love our decision. We also love Lisle. I run Community Park every day. But the track needs to be updated for that purpose. Someone else said it is way too important of a task to move too fast. I totally agree with that, but I also think we've been doing this for a long time, and we need to move on and vote yes on it because we need to get this implemented. I mean, again, selfishly, I have a sophomore who only has 2 years left, right? So I would love for him to see the impact of it and be able to enjoy a new track. Somebody said that the stadium wouldn't improve the quality of life of students, like test scores. I don't have facts or data for that, but honestly, I think when kids are out there and doing the activities they love and have proper equipment, they could do better in school. I'm not saying they're for sure going to, but I think when you're out there and you're, setting records and PRs in a 200 during a track practice, that really might help improve your overall mental health, and then that might help you improve in school. So again, no data or anything on that, but, and then the night games versus afternoon games. So again, I have a runner who runs cross country every Saturday in the fall. He loves to go to Friday night games. If you have all afternoon games on the weekends, you lose a lot of people who play soccer, who play, cross country and other sports. And it's a really fun atmosphere to be at a Bennett, football game. I went to my first one last year, and it was just really, really fun. So that being said, I would appreciate that you vote yes on this. Appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. As the line has gone, okay, please come on down. Just going to ask if there was anyone else.
Good evening, Phil Lukey Hines. As you probably know, I represent Mrs. Donahue. Bennett has clearly failed to meet the necessary standards set forth in your special use requirements. This will be detrimental to the general public, and the project is injurious to the enjoyment of neighboring properties and impairs property values. As Mr. Marin clearly stated and is obvious by looking at the record, Bennett's own expert found that the stadium will significantly affect property values as future years go forward. That was Bennett's own expert. That is not disputed. Further, your PUD standards specifically say that no PUD may be recommended for approval unless it will result in public benefits that are at least equal to or greater to the benefits to the applicant as a result of the approval of departures from the regulations of the zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance. The departures in the PUD in this case only benefit Bennett Academy. There are no public benefits to the area or the nearby residents, let alone at least equal. The PUD section of your ordinance also states that any departures must be in direct response to the PUD's advancement of the objectives identified in this chapter. The only objective these departures may possibly meet is listed as A. That departure, or that objective, would meet every proposed PUD that asks for a departure. The other 10 objectives are not met by this project or the proposed departures. The precedent here and the effect on the neighbors with all the proposed departures is too great to be allowed. The problem here is the project does not work in this particular location for night games. It does not meet your own standards. I know the standards are lessons for special uses after Living Word, but Living Word specifically protects your ability to deny special use requests when they would result in, quote, an adverse effect upon adjoining and surrounding properties, unique and different from the adverse effect that would be seen in other areas. Here, due to the noise and specific proximity to single-family homes, this adverse effect is much greater on those homes than is normal or should be allowed, as shown by the evidence. The evidence before the Plan Commission, and that's what you have to rely upon. That evidence is what you have to rely upon. Showed that without a doubt that none of the other 25-plus examples that Bennett went out and tried to find are remotely the same as being proposed here. We talked about that. I talked about it in January. I'm not going to repeat myself, all that. If you decide to allow this use, the modified conditions you have just heard from, those most greatly affected, are reasonable and should be implemented. In addition, the time limits for monitoring noise in conditions 14 and 15 should be greatly extended. Only 2 or 3 years of monitoring is insufficient. The sound effects will not go away in year 2 or year 3 and will continue to evolve as conditions on the field and then the stands change. If Bennett's football team gets better, there's going to be more noise. This will all depend on crowd size and types of noises being emitted. There is no reason to limit this monitoring to such a short period of time. At the last board meeting in January, the board asked for specific information and evidence on the following areas, among others. 1, moving the stadium to the east side. 2, real data on noise levels. 3, financial teeth in the conditions. That was financial teeth. And rectifying the parking issues on Cascade. To my knowledge, these requests have been ignored or have been dealt with outside of this process. No evidence has been provided on these issues. These are the issues you asked for. If it has been and I missed it, that, quote, evidence must be subject to cross-examination and challenge at the Planning and Zoning Commission in order to avoid violating the neighbor's due process rights. I do want to follow up with one thing one gentleman said, and I forget his name, about the lights at New Trier. There was no rain on the nights. Those were clear nights that those pictures were taken. Accordingly, we would ask that you vote no to this application. Or if you do vote yes, that you strengthen the conditions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any further? Okay. I won't ask.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. Adam Gropa. I am an Oak Hill resident. I have not lived in Oak Hill South, though I do frequent through the neighborhood. So if you haven't seen me, you will. I go through your neighborhood all the time. I'm pretty tall. Easy to see. I get it. I know. All I want to say, like I said, Lisle resident for 39 years. I went to Bennett. My children, one of my sons goes to Bennett now. My children will go to Bennett in the future. My wife and I have discussed this a lot. Is it a benefit or a detriment to the neighborhood? We love it. I just want to make the point tonight, the sea of red that you're all witnessing, while we don't have light candles and lumens and all these different things that I know a lot of people have done a lot of work to understand, these meetings have been going on for over a year now. I think all that's on the record. You've all seen that. I know that there are a lot of Oak Hill residents here tonight. I don't know if there are any Oak Hill South residents here tonight, but plenty are here to support this. And I just want you to know that the sea of red is not just from people around Lisle, around the community. This is our home too. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Ying Yi Zhan. I live in Oak Hill South, and my house is really close to the proposed site. there's a lady who came up here and she was talking about how we need to think about kids. Well, I also have a very young kid that's not even 2. And while you guys are thinking about Bennett's kids, I want you guys to also think about kids in Oak Hill South. My young child needs to go to bed very early. I came here alone. My husband's at home taking care of him. He's asleep. He has to go to bed at around 7 and 8. Nighttime activity so close to our home is going to disrupt his sleep, which is very important for his development. So I also want you guys to think about the children in Oak Hill South, not just the children in Bennett. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to give public comment? Seeing none, then I will ask if Bennett has any additional comments or presentation they would planning to provide.
Okay, good evening. I am Caitlin Chuck with the law firm Rosenov & Whitaker here on behalf of Bennett Academy. First and foremost, I want to thank the Village of Lisle, Mayor Mullen, and the Board of Trustees for the opportunity to be heard on January 12th and for allowing us additional time for ongoing collaboration and discussion on this project. We heard a lot of testimony on January 12th, and we heard a lot of testimony tonight. The top question that was raised back on the 12th that I'd like to address is why can't we explore the southeast corner of the site? As we've explained throughout this process, the ownership structure is truly a unique one. Bennett effectively has a ground lease with the Abbey for a term of 35 years. After 35 years, ownership reverts back to the Abbey. As part of the ownership structure, there's a covenant with restrictions in place for the use of Bennett's campus. Specifically, one of those restrictions is that we cannot make any permanent improvements on that entire southeast corner of the site, except what is necessary to maintain, repair, or improve the existing soccer fields. We spoke with the Abbey since the last meeting, and we received another letter stating that the Abbey cannot amend that agreement. As the future interest holder of the Bennett campus, the Abbey intends to preserve its property rights as it relates to that area now and in the future. So to this end, we went back to see if there was once again anything we could do in order to provide a little bit more separation between the stadium and Oak Hill South. We were able to reconfigure the plan so that we're now providing 100 feet from the back of the bleachers to the west property line. In addition to physically shifting the stadium, we also relocated Alumni Plaza. This is an area that was originally proposed in the rear of the bleachers, and it would have been a place where people would have gathered. This is now going to be included with Phase 2, along with our hospitality building. To put this all into perspective, we ran a comparison of all schools in DuPage County and the distances from the nearest stadium improvement to the nearest residential property line. Bennett Academy is in excess of the median distance, which is 90 feet. We were asked at the last meeting to evaluate this data, and this illustrates several other schools in DuPage County are actually located closer to a residential property line than what we're proposing. As we mentioned at the last meeting, the size of the scoreboard has been significantly reduced. The overall height was reduced by 8 feet, and the width of the screen was reduced by 7 feet. This is a total reduction of 38%. Please keep in mind we also swapped the video screen with the scoreboard element. This also allowed the video screen to be lowered 8 feet from its original location. With these changes, the video screen will be lower than the closest solid fences along the property line, which is about 174 feet away. As we mentioned at the last meeting, we reduced our capacity from 2,000 in the home bleachers to 1,400. This is the lowest number that we can accommodate in order to serve our current student body and faculty and staff. Here's a modified image of what the home bleachers will look like from the west property line, and it really is a significant difference. In comparison to other local schools, we have the lowest capacity to enrollment ratio. We were specifically asked to evaluate the schools that are listed on this chart. You'll see that Naperville North and Central have an enrollment of about 2,500 students and a stadium capacity of 4,500. Wheaton North and Wheaton Warrenville have enrollments of about 1,800 students and a stadium capacities around 3,000. Jumping over to the Chicago Catholic League, it's important to recognize the conditions for other schools that are located within our conference, specifically 2 schools who recently underwent the same approval process for their stadiums. Joliet Catholic Academy was approved for a new stadium at the end of January just of this year. They have an enrollment of 530 students, and the stadium was approved for a capacity up to 7,000 people. Loyola is another school that we continue to reference and compare our project to. Loyola has an enrollment of 2,000 students with up to a 5,500 seat capacity at their stadium. All of this to say that Bennett's proposal reflects the absolute minimum in order to accommodate our current enrollment and faculty and staff. As we just noted, again, the proposed distance from the stadium to the residential property line is in excess of more than half of the schools in DuPage County. We updated our traffic study based upon the reduced capacity. As you'll see here, we have a reduction in the anticipated traffic for the stadium. The reduction in capacity also reduces our parking demand by 26%. And as you know, our project did not require a departure from the parking requirements under the original 2,300 seat capacity. But now that we've reduced our capacity, we remain confident that we will have more than enough parking capacity. Even so, we've incorporated our overflow parking plans into our traffic study. Combined, we can provide an additional 228 spaces, and we also have an additional 335 spaces at Benedictine University pursuant to a private agreement that we would be able to utilize if at all necessary. All this to say we do not anticipate parking becoming a problem. However, we wanted to make sure that we were managing event parking and attendance as best as possible. So to this end, we put together a traffic management plan that addresses traffic control, the utilization of Lisle Police for football games, designated pickup and drop-off areas in order to keep people off of Cascade, the management of neighborhood parking, and ongoing communication and coordination with the Bennett community regarding event traffic and parking. This traffic management plan specifically allowed us to take a closer look at Cascade Drive. We're proposing to install temporary signage that indicates no Bennett parking and also have staff or police stationed at Maple and Cascade as well as Maple and Benedictine Drive in order to deter event attendees from parking in these areas. In fact, we were able to test this strategy at a basketball event that was held on January 24th. This event hosted 9 different schools from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. and over 3,000 people attended. 0 attendees parked on Cascade. Since we were able to effectively manage conditions of this heavily attended event, we are confident that we can do the same for football games, which is much smaller in scale than the event that was held in January. We also received permission from Benedictine, again, to post the same signage over along Benedictine Drive. We were asked to update our sound study based upon the reduced capacity. Ultimately, the expected peak dBA is still around 83. We also had the sound engineer evaluate what we could anticipate as an average 1-hour sound level, and that could be up to 75 decibels. Ultimately, we used this data to understand how to limit the sound levels under the conditions to the stadium operations, even though we are exempt under the code. I would also like to clarify that the existing marching band was included in this evaluation, and our sound engineer is here should you have any additional questions on that. Next, we were asked to compare our lighting system to North Central College. We also included Loyola here as a comparison as well. Loyola's lighting is nearly identical, except they allow show lighting. Loyola and Bennett have 50-foot candles at the center of the field in order to meet high school lighting standards for level of play. North Central's lights are programmed to be at 75-foot candles due to different and more intense lighting requirements for a higher level of play because that is a collegiate level, and this is to take into consideration any televised events. So this is likely the difference that you're seeing at North Central College and what we've been proposing. Musco also had a spill line analysis provided in order to show the light cutoff. According to the comparison, Bennett has a better spill design out of all 3 schools because their average and maximum foot candle is all under 1. So glare is something that was brought up at the last meeting and again tonight. When we're talking about glare, Musco likes to use candela as a reference because in actual reality, glare is relatively subjective, while candela is an objective and quantitative value that can be measured. As you can see on the slide, which I know you have seen many times before, that as lighting has evolved, the candela has been more controlled over time. Initial candela of the lights in 1977 had about 102,000 candela measurement, and it's been gradually reduced over time. That said, there are LED systems out there today with 0 light control. That's the LED system all the way on the right of your slide, and that has a candela level of over 141,000. This is more than that 1977 system. Our system is expected to be at about a 7, and this is because of the total light control system and visors that will be installed. Again, that system emitting about 141,000 candelas on your right. This is similar to Benedictine. The one on the left is what Bennett is proposing. The total light control system is designed specifically for player safety and neighbor discomfort in mind. Musco specifically did some evaluation of Benedictine because it's right here in town and we're all familiar with those conditions. These are photos of the lights, which have absolutely zero control or cutoff. Per Musco, that light from Benedictine trespasses about 2,000 feet or more into Arbor Trails. Mundelein and Prairie Ridge High School have a very similar situation, both LED systems without the total light control, and it's impeding into neighborhoods. So you'll see that the light continues to extend well beyond where it should, and certainly beyond the stadium. Both schools reached out to Musco in order to get their lights retrofitted with Musco's total light control system in order to fix this issue. When comparing this slide to what we're looking at on this slide, you'll see a significant difference in what we're proposing. These are real life examples of the total light control fixtures and what they look like when they're in use. So you can see no light extends beyond the fixtures and the spill is absolutely completely controlled. When controlling glare outdoors, it's all about mitigation. It's about pole height and the installation of the visor system. These examples all illustrate great cutoff and extreme glare control in order to ensure that light will not trespass into the neighborhood. Musco is also here should you have any additional questions on this. Just to recap, we have made an abundant amount of revisions to our plans and commitments that we've made since this was originally submitted back in 2023. Our original capacity for the stadium was 3,085 seats. We reduced this to 2,300 and then ultimately down to 1,700. This is a total reduction of 1,385 seats. We shifted the stadium as far east as possible. We're now providing 100 feet from the back of the bleachers to the west property line. As discussed, this is in excess of more than half of the schools in DuPage County. We reduced the height of the bleachers. We relocated light poles. As the stadium shifted during different iterations of this proposal, the lights also continued to shift further east. Reduction of the size and scale of the scoreboard by 38%. We reconfigured the scoreboard so that the video screen is located 8 feet lower than it was originally designed. The removal of the right out onto Maple Avenue. This was a large concern back in 2024. Removal of Alumni Plaza from the back of the bleachers. Again, this is a place where people would have gathered, and we want to deter people from gathering near the west property line. We removed RBG lighting from our plans. We agreed to replace existing 28-foot-tall parking lot poles with 20-foot-tall poles. We agreed to retrofit existing parking lot lights with visor for better conditions for the residents. We agreed to limit sound, even though we're exempt under the ordinance. We agreed to have a sound monitoring system installed in order to confirm that we are compliant with everything that we've represented. We've agreed to specific shut-off times for the lights, and we've agreed to a stadium usage restriction. Specifically, we've agreed to limit the number of days the stadium lights can be used, and that number is 54. That's 17 practices, 31 non-football events, and a maximum of 6 football events, or 1.5% of the year. We also restricted lights from being used in December, January, February, June, July, and every Sunday. To put this all into perspective, there will be 311 days per year that the lights will not be used. Lastly, we were asked to come up with a plan in order to make sure that everyone who will be part of the stadium operations is well-versed in the conditions to the approval. To this end, Bennett will provide a training and compliance manual to all athletic department personnel, game day employees, volunteers, contractors, and event supervisors. Each person in receipt of the manual will be trained in operations depending on their role. So for example, if a volunteer is helping with traffic circulation, they may not be trained in lighting or sound operations, but they will be trained in the procedures that are set forth in the traffic management plan. Similarly, the operator of a sound system will be trained in the operations in order to confirm compliance with all of the sound conditions set forth in that ordinance. The manual will specify those requirements that are conditions to the approval, such as dimming and shut-off times, so that everything is in an easily accessible and digestible format. To this date, we've received over 1,000 letters of support. We have also received an abundance of support from within the Lisle community and residents. And now I'm going to ask that anybody who is a Lisle resident and they're here tonight in support of the project, please stand. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration of our proposal. I'll turn it over to President Myers for just a few closing remarks.
Good evening, Mayor Mullen, trustees of the Village Board. Thank you for your time, care, and professionalism that you brought to this process. We are truly grateful. Over the past few months, your questions, feedback, and your willingness to engage in thoughtful dialogue have helped us refine this project in meaningful ways. It has made our plan better, and it has strengthened our partnership with the Village of Lisle. At its heart, this project is about the mission of Bennett Academy. We exist to form young men and women into compassionate leaders, critical thinkers, and faithful servants of God and neighbor. Facilities matter because they shape experiences, and experiences shape formation. This stadium renovation will create a space where students can grow not only physically, but socially and emotionally. It will allow more of our programs to take place on our campus and create opportunities for students to be together in meaningful ways. Our mission is not only achieved in classrooms. This modernization project is an extension of our classrooms, where lessons in teamwork, discipline, and leadership are lived out in real time. It is also an important investment in Bennett's future, helping us remain strong in an increasingly competitive landscape. So we continue to attract and form new students who will thrive here in Lisle. Also, we are all aware of the growing challenges in our culture. Our young people are increasingly shaped by a digital world that, while offering many benefits, can also lead to isolation. Time spent on screens often replaces time spent in real relationships. We see this impact rising with levels of anxiety, loneliness, and disconnection among adolescents. But this is not only a challenge for young people. Adults are experiencing this as well. Many of us feel the pull of constant connectivity, but with less genuine connection. Communities across our country are asking how we can rebuild spaces where people can gather, interact, and belong. This is what that project offers. It is a place where students, families, neighbors, alumni, and the greater Lisle community can come together. A place for shared experiences, whether that's a game or at practice. These moments build relationships, they build identity, and they ultimately build community. Finally, I firmly believe this project is good for the village of Lisle. It reflects a community that is evolving, that is investing in its future, and that values education and shared spaces where people can come together. It will enhance the visual and functional quality of this area of the village, which holds deep historical significance as Bennett's home for over 70 years. All while reinforcing that Lisle is a place that supports strong institutions and a vibrant, healthy community. We believe this project aligns with the very best of what Lisle represents. Thank you again for your partnership, your thoughtful consideration, and your service to this community. We are truly grateful, and we respectfully ask that you support our project. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll bring us to board discussion. Do any trustees have any points for discussion?
I'll take the dive. I have several different points. I'll jump around a little bit here. But Director Santana, I'm going to put you on the spot. I would like to be very clear, if you could provide clarity as to, for everyone, I'm doing this more for just record. Can you explain exemptions of noise for educational institutions, both from the state of Illinois and from our village code?
So the village code noise exemption, it's the same exemption that has come up in discussions related to pickleball recently. That exemption reads the authorized use of recreational facilities within the property of schools, colleges, and public parks between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m.
And what about the state of Illinois?
The Illinois Environmental Protection Act states that no board, and in this context, it's the Pollution Control Board, standards for monitoring noise or regulations prescribing limitations on noise emissions shall apply to any organized amateur or professional sporting activity, except as otherwise provided in this section.
Thank you. And I kind of did that for us because I want to make sure any future board, when they hear, when it comes to noise and educational institutions, that exemptions are very clear as it pertains to, like, if it's within the building or if it's a stadium, there. Like, it's just clear within the code. When I thought about this as a project, there is an existing stadium. This was not to allow a new stadium to come. There is an existing stadium that is there. And then at the very beginning, I definitely felt it was too large. Let's just put it that way. I know it was a little harsh at the last meeting. But I kind of want to just clear a couple things up here. Former trustee Greco, you talked about it on the school referendum. When 202's project came about, the Village of Lisle did a referendum. 67% of the town voted in favor of allowing 202 to have lights. It was the board at the time that decided to take a different track, which then led to the Benedictine Sports Complex. I just want to provide that as clarity for just the record. It's not, I think some comments were made that Lisle rejected it. I think it's probably fair to say there's a little bit of cloudiness as to who rejected it and how that was. Since my neighborhood, and I know the basketball coach's neighborhood was mentioned, and Arbor Trails on property values. The other thing to remember is those homes that are mentioned are both the smallest lots in our neighborhood and both the smallest square footage. But I think that they have still increased in their values by maybe 40% over the last 10 to 11 years. It's been crazy from the property value increases in that area. And then if you go a little bit south, some of the larger homes were some of our most high-valued homes that back up right to that Benedictine Service Road. I'm just saying this because it was brought up about my neighborhood, and I wanted to make sure that we're clear as to what we have seen within property values within there. The financial teeth thing, we talked about it at the January meeting. I'm surprised it was brought up. We're a non-home rule community, thus we cannot create financial penalties in the same way that, say, any large town like Naperville or Downers Grove can do. We're kind of really weighted against that, and I know we talked about it, and there was maybe some intrigue about some creative ways to do it, but we took a different track because we are confined within our legal framework. So I just wanted to kind of mention that as another one, too. One of the last speakers talked about it. I just want to be fair, again, for the record. While we have definitely received a lot of emails in favor of this project from Oak Hill and Oak Hill South membership as well, that easily foyable. I just wanted to make sure that it was mentioned. Just because you didn't hear them speak does not mean they did not express their desire on this project. The public benefit thing for me, I'm just going to mention it as there are many ways to define what a public benefit is. The standards that we talk about, that we've all seen, it does not state economic benefit. It says public benefit. And how you determine what a public benefit is can mean a lot of different ways. Of course, economic metrics are one way to determine a public benefit, but it does not mean that is the sole way in which we determine a public benefit. And I think that kind of leads to one of my thoughts here, which is an educational institution. I know you, Trustee Simon, you and I were talking about, you're a past school board president. Extracurriculars are part of an educational mission. And whether that is a drama club to a sports team, they are part of the broader educational mission that round our kids' abilities, right? So I don't want to put words in your mouth because I'm fearful of you most of the time, but I just want to make sure that I've caught that correctly. So look, I won't bury the lead. I'm going to vote yes on this project. I believe the conditions are based upon precedent because we based the Wilmette project with Loyola was its precedent setting. We have moved further into making these conditions stronger. And Wilmette faced a larger stadium than what we faced here. And I, of course, don't like the fact that we have two stadiums next to each other, but I also think that this brings up a broader question. If this was to pass tonight, what is the future of the Benedictine Stadium? Because we know that that has challenges that we need to address and what that may or may not be. I think for me, I feel comfortable with the conditions. I feel comfortable with where this project has moved to and the modifications that it came from the planning and zoning. And I counted the meetings
Director Sempani, it was 6 planning and zoning meetings, I believe, that we had that were all public, that had cross-examination, all of that. So and the Planning and Zoning Committee looked at the standards, it looked at this, so I feel comfortable after reviewing all the materials. And I've looked at every email, every content piece we've gotten. I've gone through it several times. But I will be a yes vote tonight.
Thank you, Trustee Duffy.
Thank you. And Trustee Duffy may be surprised by this, but I agree with a lot of what he said tonight. But I want to touch on a couple things. First of all, I think I was the one who said at the last meeting that any settlement, the best settlement usually means both sides are unhappy because everybody had to give something. And so I want to thank staff, I want to thank Bennett, and I want to thank the residents for all of your input. We have, believe it or not, the board has fully digested everything that we have received, whether it was emails, whether it was phone calls, whether it was visits with you. We have considered the entire package. The couple comments that I want to make tonight regarding the conditions, and I want to thank specifically Village Manager Cook for making yourself available to me both Friday and Monday. And so some of the things I want to put on the record are things that we talked about. So one of the things I think the conditions contain that the village will have the sound monitoring equipment. The village will have the ability to decide where the sound monitoring equipment is set. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And is it also correct that it is the village intends to hire like a sound engineer or someone with expertise to make that determination for us?
Yes, we'll rely on the professional advice of a third-party engineer. We're not going to guess at this stuff.
Thank you. And then the reports, the data will be made publicly available. I'm not necessarily asking to hold anything up or put anything in the conditions, but I'm saying on the record, the data will be publicly available. Is that also correct?
The data that gets submitted to the village is publicly accessible.
Thank you. I do say, one thing I will say about the conditions, and again, I'm not looking to hold things up, but to Bennett, I do think it makes sense to have the landscapes screening extend the entire west property line. I think that's a reasonable request. I also understand from speaking with Village Manager Cook and for the residents' information that fencing, I think, would impact the existing trees and vegetation and the root structures. Is that correct?
I can respond to that. That's correct, and that's one of the things we brought up at the last meeting to just kind of discuss. Here are the options, this is what we came with from Plan Commission, but ultimately we want everybody to understand what would happen if that fence went in. So your request to extend landscaping further along the west property line, we're happy to submit a new landscape plan and work with staff to that effect.
Thank you. And I understand landscaping better than fencing, that would be great. Thank you for that. Otherwise, I think that we did, one of the things that we've talked about significantly was the Wilmette factors, and the conditions as they are now exceed even the Wilmette factors. We are the strictest, I think, in DuPage County, if not in the state. I think that is significant, and I appreciate the changes that have been made, and I will be in support of the project.
Thank you. Any other trustees? Go ahead, Trustee.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'd like to thank everybody that's been involved in this, from Oak Hill South, from Bennett, and our Planning and Zoning Commission that also put in a lot of time and hard work on making this project better. I think that, as President Myers said, that with all the input from the people from Oak Hill South, they actually came out with a better project in the end. And, all of us that met with Oak Hill South residents and got your emails and everything, we understand that your concerns have always been sincere and that you've been very honest about, how you felt. But I think that those sincere concerns have now affected the project to the point where it should go ahead. As you saw the slide, there's 23 different modifications that they made. On top of that, there's 8 pages of conditions, all of which should really make this project, I think, better and, for all concerned parties. So I am in favor of the project moving forward. To the Bennett Academy community, it came up one of our meetings that somebody said that Bennett has not always been a good neighbor. And then I think following that, there was some question about, well, what exactly was meant by that. I'm not sure what was meant by that, but I would say this. I think it's imperative for Bennett to be a better neighbor going forward with this project.
Thank you. Anyone else from trustees have any comments?
I was thinking similar thoughts to Trustee Sima. Compromise does hurt a little bit on each side, and the existing stadium that the students use at BU, the rental costs have increased significantly. The scheduling is very difficult. I don't know what's going on over there, but it's just not a great place for high schoolers to spend their time. I think our job as a board is to keep Lisle out of the newspaper in a negative fashion. And I think to keep Benedictine University separate and Bennett students, on their own separate area is important, and it increases the school experience. As we saw with Lisle High School, their football team is not as much in existence anymore, and we want children to have options. So the stadium currently is on its last legs, and I think the conditions are practical, and I would be excited if we move forward.
Thank you.
I'm not going to add a whole lot. That's everybody really kind of covered all my thoughts. I do want to say thank you to everybody. We have read every email. We've met with some of the residents. There's been a lot of work, a lot of thoughtful consideration has gone into this project. It's a vote that I don't take lightly. I feel it for everybody in this room. But with these proposed conditions, I would be willing to support this project. Thank you.
Go ahead. Please.
So I don't, Trustee Duffy and Sima covered a number of the items, so I don't want to rehash that. I do want to note that I said in January that this is a difficult decision. It remains a difficult decision, at least for me. I appreciate the time and effort that has been put into the modifications, but exploring things such as relocation. I don't think we ever really have got the Abbey's intentions, understanding the, not ground lease, but the agreement between Bennett Academy and the Abbey. What I'll say to that is, at least for me as a trustee, it makes it very difficult that if the Abbey is looking to come to this board and look for relief or changes, not just to the property in question, but any of theirs, it'd be a really difficult ask for me. I'll leave it at that. I don't think that they have provided solutions that are helpful to the community. On the public, transparency, it's been indicated, but I guess I'll reiterate, FOIA, is available to the public, and is certainly used and been brought up in public comment on things such as Illinois American Water and other topics. I do think that we have tried to balance private property owners' rights, both with the neighbors in Oak Hill South as well as with Bennett Academy. It's extremely difficult. And I think the points that are raised of two stadiums was something that was a challenge for me when this first came up. But one of the challenges is there aren't many sites that you can find that has a college and a high school within such close proximity. And that's the cards that are dealt. That can't be changed. For me, it became further difficult as we went through this process that there is an existing stadium that is in place on Bennett Academy's property. So to want to update and bring that to a modern standard is a reasonable request. It's not necessarily the preferred site from my perspective. The preferred site is not available. So for me, the conditions that have been put in place to do our best to protect the private property interests and the enjoyment of the neighbors, I think there's an acknowledgement, certainly from the board, I think from Bennett Academy, and I think to a certain extent tonight from the neighbors, that gives me greater comfort in supporting, understanding that this will never be perfect and that we can't find all scenarios that could play out. Can we necessarily legislate? But I think that where this started to where it is today is an appropriate balance, and ultimately, I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Assuming everyone's said what they wanted to say, I will wrap up board discussion just by saying, I'll reiterate for the record, I live in Oak Hill South also. I am on Cascade. I think it's important to just be transparent about that. As mayor, it's rare that I vote. Unless there's a tie or this is a matter of, or we need a supermajority, the mayor's not even called on to vote, so I probably won't be voting tonight. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity more to ask everybody in this room. Some of y'all aren't going to be happy. Some of you are going to be super excited. Just be kind to each other after this meeting concludes. It's going to be hard, I know. I'm going to hide in my house in my basement for a while. Please, quiet. Quiet. As I was saying, it would be fabulous if people could be kind to each other. With that, I will ask Clerk Benton to take the roll call.
Okay. Trustee Duffy?
Aye.
Trustee Sima?
Aye.
Trustee McQuillan?
Aye.
Trustee McGovern?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
And the motion passes. That'll bring us tonight to officials and staff reports. I will start really quickly with the mayor's report. There was a public comment about data centers, and I've already talked to the village manager. The next agenda item, or the next agenda, we will have on committee of the whole something to just discuss about what the future for us in terms of regulating data centers or potentially halting the allowance of data centers will be. So just something to address that public comment. And that's all I'll have for tonight. Any trustees have officials report? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and ask if there's anything from staff.
Sure. I just got a few things, Mayor, or a couple things. Earlier today, we did have a new addition to the public safety team. Officer Tony Matthew was sworn in this morning and began his service to Lyle earlier today. He's an experienced lateral police officer, and we welcome him to Lyle. One other item, talking about academic excellence. Congratulations to the Kennedy Junior High math team, who earned first place in the Math Counts Duquesne chapter competition. I understand one of our young residents was a member of this team, and they will advance to the national championship next month. So congratulations and good luck to you all representing our state. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Clerk Benton, do you have anything? Okay. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to recess into closed session for the purposes of reviewing closed session meeting minutes, collective negotiating matters between the village and its employees or representatives, and the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the village.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Clerk Benton, please call the roll.
Trustee McQuillan?
Aye.
Trustee Duffy?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee McGovern?
Aye.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
And with that, we will recess into closed session. No action other than reconvening and then adjourning from the village board meeting will occur after executive session. Thanks. I have a motion to reconvene open session.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. Sorry to spring this on you while you're still trying to sit down. Clerk Benton, can you please call the roll for reconvening open session?
All right, Trustee Duffy.
Aye.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee McGovern.
Aye.
McQuillan. Trustee McGovern.
Aye.
Trustee Grau.
Aye.
Trustee Olson.
Aye.
And we're back to open session. May I now please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Village Clerk Benton, please call roll.
Okay. Trustee McQuillan.
Aye.
Trustee Grau.
Aye.
Trustee Olson.
Aye.
Trustee McGovern.
Aye.
Trustee Duffy.
Aye.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.